Men are all born from the same hole, yet in the end, they all suffer because of that same hole. It's true when they're young, and even at 80 years old, like Donald Trump. It's no different. There's just a tiny hole at the Strait of Hormuz, but Trump is deploying a large number of troops there to guard it, preventing any ships from going in or out. And countless disputes have arisen just because of this hole. The funniest part is the arguments between the major powers. In the past, the United Nations called on Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz because it is an international waterway. Why would Iran arbitrarily shut it down? Yet Iran only allowed its own ships and those of 5 friendly countries to pass through. Immediately, Russia and China vetoed the UN's position. Each of them cast a full veto vote, no abstaining. After all, they were among the friendly countries allowed to pass through Hormuz, so why not veto it right away? Because of that, both Russia and China supported Iran's use of force to close the strait, arguing that it was a legitimate act of self-defense. Otherwise, they said, the U.S. and Israel would have crushed Iran. Other countries were furious. They argued that if Iran wanted to defend itself, it should fight back against the U.S. and Israel, not take the whole world hostage. What about freedom of navigation? What about international law? Is global law just a joke? Iran responded by asking, what law allows the U.S. to attack a sovereign country? Then others fired back, and what law allows Iran to enrich uranium to develop nuclear weapons? End quote. After a long argument, everyone ended up with a headache. Each side had its own reasoning. Eventually, the U.S. ambassador to the UN could only conclude bitterly. So, in the end, you support Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz as legal, right? Then if Iran can close it legally, the U.S. can do the same, right? Fine, I'll go tell Donald Trump. And sure enough, what had to happen, happened. Today, the U.S. has officially sealed off the outer layer of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran can do whatever it wants inside, but the U.S. simply blocks ships. At the entrance, nothing gets in, nothing gets out. Not even a fly could pass through, let alone Iranian oil tankers. The U.S. Navy has already forced 8 oil tankers linked to Iran to turn back. Immediately, China changed its tone. It now claims that the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is dangerous and irresponsible. If both sides keep blocking like this, tensions will only escalate. The best solution, they say, is a ceasefire and a return to negotiations. So far, the U.S. has not responded to this. But this clearly shows how difficult the situation is for China. About 70% of its oil is imported. If these straits are blocked, China faces serious trouble. After more than a month of conflict between the U.S. and Iran, rising oil prices have already reduced China's exports, partly due to higher energy costs, and partly because global demand is tightening. The country suffering the most right now is Iran. Its economy depends heavily on exporting oil to China. But with the U.S. blocking the strait, how can it survive? Not being able to export is already painful. But even having money doesn't help, because Iran can't import goods either. That's even worse. Previously, Trump had invited Iran to cooperate and profit together from the Strait of Hormuz, but Iran refused, wanting to go solo and not share with the U.S. Now, the U.S. is essentially saying, if I can't benefit, then no one will. The U.S. can afford this. It's already wealthy. But Iran is struggling. Estimates suggest that with the strait blocked, Iran could lose up to $435 million per day. This is why the U.S. is very confident that it can reach a deal with Iran by next weekend. Trump recently hinted at a surprise in 2 days, but no one knows what that means. Could it be Iran's unconditional surrender, a new ultimatum, or just another delay? Trump is unpredictable. On the other side, Iran has made it clear it will not surrender. Its president stated that Iran does not seek war or instability and is open to constructive dialogue. However, any attempt to impose will or force surrender will fail, and the Iranian people will never accept it. In other words, Iran is saying, talk nicely, and we'll listen. Use force, and it won't work. Meanwhile, the U.S. is doing both carrot and stick. At the negotiation table, it offers incentives. At sea, it uses force. At this point, both sides are eager for a deal. Iran is economically suffocating, unable to sell oil or import goods. No country can be fully self-sufficient, so trade is essential. If Iran doesn't negotiate soon, and the strait remains blocked for another month, the domestic situation could become extremely severe. But the U.S. isn't in a great position either. Trump wants tensions to ease so both sides can return to economic cooperation, especially with midterm elections approaching. He also wants the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates to stimulate the economy and reduce the cost of servicing the U.S. $38 trillion debt. But with oil prices so high, the Fed cannot lower rates because its primary mission is to control inflation. As long as the conflict continues and oil prices remain high, interest rates must stay elevated. And with high borrowing costs, managing U.S. debt becomes much harder. To lower rates, the conflict with Iran must end quickly. The Strait of Hormuz must reopen. Oil prices need to return to around $70.80 per barrel. In short, both sides are in a hurry. The question is, who can endure more pain and stay tougher, will gain the upper hand in negotiations. Iran wants a 5-year halt to uranium enrichment, while the U.S. demands 20 years. Neither side is backing down yet. Trump wants a big, meaningful deal, not a small compromise. So for now, the world can only hold its breath and wait. The upcoming negotiations this weekend, how long will they last? Another 2-1 hour standoff like before, or even longer?